Hello and welcome to another episode of the Uncommon Energy Podcast. My name is Trainer Chip Ritchie, joined here by my friend and co-host Azul GG, fresh back from Worlds. What's up, Azul? How we doing? How was London, man?
London was great. London was great for sure. Yeah, we did miss an episode last week, unfortunately. But my last week has actually been pretty bad. Just jet lag has been kicking my butt really bad. Like I actually never had jet lag this bad. I don't think like it affecting me. I think I just like underestimated it and took one too many naps in the first couple days back from London, and that screwed me up
Oh, this
for the
nap
next couple
totally
days
won't mess me
following.
up.
Yeah, it wasn't even that long of a nap, but I took it and then I just couldn't get to sleep. I don't know, just kind of like a domino effect. But I'm recovered now. The last couple days, I think I'm back on track, so I'm all good to go. So besides the jet lag stuff, everything's been getting back to normal for me with content and everything. But you had a pretty exciting week, Chip. Why don't you let the viewers know what you've been up to the last couple days?
Yeah, man. I did have a pretty crazy week. So, as we've been talking about for the last few episodes now, my wife and I were expecting, and our son was born on Wednesday, August the 24th at 7:25 p.m. We are very thankful and blessed and happy. He is doing great. My wife is doing great as well. It was, yeah, it's a wild time, man. It is hard to put into words, kind of like my thoughts and emotions around the whole thing. I was telling you this before we started recording, but like, mentally leading up to expecting a child to be born, it's like I've had done all the preparation I knew how to do. Like we talked about things and, got nursery set up. We bought all kinds of stuff for him that we would know we were going to be needing. Um, and then it's like the second he was born, it just like something felt, it was like I had done all that preparation, but it was like in that moment when he was born, um just things felt different to me about like my life and what like what I don't know. It's hard to put into words, man. And I think dads out there who are listening maybe will understand a little bit, but yeah, that little dude is amazing. My wife is amazing as well. Big shout outs to Brooke for just being such a great mom already. We're kind of struggling through the first week here of being parents, learning a lot of things, but that's part of the process, right? But yeah, baby's healthy, mom is healthy. It was a little bit early, so she was induced into labor, but everything, so that adds like a couple complications just kind of naturally, but everything is really gone pretty spectacularly. So we are very blessed in that regard. So yeah, we did miss a week, like Azul said.
Yeah.
We did not put out an episode last week. He came back from Worlds Tuesday, and we had talked about recording that. Or sorry, you came back Monday, and we had talked
Monday, yeah.
about recording that Monday night. But you landed, and I guess you were just like way
Yeah.
too beat to record
I
an
was yeah, it
episode,
was pretty
right?
rough, yeah.
So we were like,
Yeah.
okay, we'll release the episode on Wednesday. And so we were just going to record on Tuesday. And on Tuesday, my wife got admitted into the hospital to be induced into labor. So yeah, the episode ended up not happening last week. So we apologize, but I thank you in advance for understanding as there was a lot going on. But yeah, a lot of exciting things happening in life right now. But we're not here to talk about those things. We've got a ton of Pokemon stuff to talk about. So much has happened in the last 2 weeks. I honestly feel like in 2 weeks' time, probably 3 episodes worth of content has come through
Yeah.
the Pokemon community. We've got World stuff, we've got regionals announced, we've had drama. There's all kinds of stuff happening in the Pokemon community. Azul, why don't you break down kind of what we're going to talk about today, though, in today's episode? Because we're definitely not going to be able to cover everything.
Yeah, unfortunately not able to get to everything this week, and you guys know who to blame. Blame young Chip, or Mini Chip.
Yes, yes, I guess I should say my son.
Yeah.
He is Samuel Frederick Ritchie the Fifth. So
Fifth.
I may be exposing myself a little bit here, but my real name is actually not Chip for anyone who didn't know. But yeah, I've gone by Chip my entire life. Anyway, go ahead.
Yeah, so get to blame Samuel the Fifth for no episode last week. You guys know who to blame. People were in my Twitch chat being like, "Yeah, why is there no Uncommon Energy episode this week?" And I was like, it had to push it back a week. But yeah, a lot of stuff to talk about today. In the episode today, we're gonna be covering the Worlds results. Obviously, we haven't talked about Worlds yet, so we're gonna talk about that. Of course, we'll
Definitely.
have I guess that flavor text. And then regionals, they've announced a lot about it so far. Not everything, but the schedule's basically here. They did add a couple to the schedule after the announcement, so there might be more to come. There's definitely more to come for other regions outside of North America, but for North America specifically, I guess we don't know for sure if we have all of them yet or not. And then a little bit of drama about the first regionals already. The first regionals hasn't even happened yet, and we've got some drama to go with it. Baltimore regionals is coming up in 2.5 weeks ish. About so already super soon. I wish there was like a little bit more of a time break, but there's not. So we're gonna be talking about that as well. A little bit of drama around Baltimore regionals. I guess unfortunately, but we're gonna talk about it. Anyway, so I guess we'll kick off with talking about worlds, and I'll start with kind of covering my experience at the championships because I was there. Chip unfortunately not able to make it because he has to deal with real life stuff like having a kid. Uh,
Lame.
but I was there, and
Oh, you're
it was
wearing your
super
Worlds
cool.
hat?
I am, yes.
Oh,
This is
nice. Yeah, I'm a
for
fan.
anyone on YouTube.
The competitor hat. I like it.
Actually, I don't know. I don't know if there's. This is not the competitor one. I don't know if there is a competitor one. There might be. If it is, it's in my bag. Um, this is one of the ones you could get at the
Got it.
Pokemon Center. Unless it is the competitor one, I actually just don't know the difference. I know this is not the one from my bag. That's all I know.
I am sorry that I sidetracked your ADD brain. Continue on.
um, yeah. So I was at Worlds. And the venue, I really like London. I'm a big fan of London, despite some of the memes I put out on Twitter. I'm a big fan of London. I guess old architecture is the main like draw thing. It reminds me a little bit of Boston. I'm originally from Boston, so there's a lot of old buildings in Boston. I like Boston, um, as well for like that reason. So, but the venue was super sick. The London Excel Center is a great venue. It's a super sick venue. And London in general, great public transportation. There was some strikes going on, but it didn't really affect me personally because I was very close to the venue as far as where I was staying. I'm sure some people got affected though, for sure, especially people who were trying to do like more touristy type things as well. I did most of that like the days I got in, the first couple of days I got in. So that didn't affect me at all. But yeah, the venue was sick. The whole setup was sick. They had like a really cool, like the main stage was in a really cool area where it was kind of like there was like the upper level and then it kind of just like dipped down towards the main stage and you had to like walk down a bunch of stairs and there's a big like it was kind of like almost like a kind of like don't like a it was like you were almost in like a half stadium kind of thing down there. So that was pretty sick. And the main stage was super sick. I was on stream on round 3, so I got to go on the main stage. The main stage was super sick. They had all the setups on there for Unite and Pokemon Go and VG and TCG. So yeah, the whole venue was super sick, and they also had I guess like the coolest thing about the everything they were kind of doing in the general area is there's a gondola that takes you from one side of the river to the other, and the gondolas were Pokemon themed,
I saw
which
that
was
on
super
Twitter.
cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we rode in those. I rode in those one night when I went over to the O2 Center, which is on the other side of the river. So that was super cool to see them doing stuff like that with the stuff in the area. And then there was also like the Pokemon Go uh court area thing where they were like doing some activities out there. They're giving out like free boba tea and cookies, and then they had like face painting and stuff like that. So that was super dope. We had like the whole area in general was kind of pokeyed up. They had like a huge monitor on the outside of the Excel Center where they were not only showing footage of the games that were being played on the main stage, but they also premiered a movie, I believe, at some point, an unseen, like an unreleased Pokemon movie. Some of it, I think. That's what I
Like a
heard. I
preview.
was, yeah, I was not there for that. But I saw a picture on Twitter, I think, of that happening, and there was a bunch of chairs set up in front of it at some time. I wasn't there for when it was happening, but the chairs weren't there the whole weekend, so there was definitely something happening. That's what I heard, like a preview of a new unreleased um, Pokemon movie, and also the Pokemon Center. They actually went like all out. This is the most I've ever seen them go. Like all this is as far as all out goes. The Pokemon Center, they went all the line. The line the first day was quite a fiasco. Me and my friends had a pretty early time slot for the first day, so we were in the front, in the midst of the crowd, at the front of the line, the first day, and it was pretty bad. I was sweating. It was hot. There was not a whole ton of coordination going on. There was like a million ways they could have done it better. They definitely did it better on the following days after, what was that, Wednesday? I want to say they definitely did
I
it
think
better
that's right. Yeah.
after then, but it was not hard to have done it better initially. So that was a pretty big mess up on their part. They definitely fixed it after that, and it didn't seem like there was any kind of huge line mob thing going on after that, but it definitely could have been avoided pretty easily, I think. So that was definitely a mess up. But the Pokemon Center itself was pretty sick. It was a huge, like, kind of area that you could kind of walk through, and they had a bunch of different products and like official merch, like Pokemon, not just Pokemon merch, but like Worlds merch, shirts and dice and hats and all that kind of stuff. So, and it was a huge kind of like walkthrough area where they had a bunch of stuff, different stuff in different areas. So they really went all out for the Pokemon Center. I can only imagine how much money they must have made
Oh
from the
man.
Pokemon Center. It was, I mean, it was packed. It seemed pretty packed the most of the weekend. So I can only imagine. But yeah, no, the venue was sick. The whole setup that they had there was sick with the Excel Center. And it was a great time. We definitely missed you, Chip. Hopefully you can make it out to the next one.
Definitely was a bummer, man. And I mean, it was, obviously there wasn't really a hard decision to be made, but it was just kind of one of those things. It was like,
Yeah.
man, I really wish I was there. Like seeing all these pictures of the things you're describing now, seeing them on Twitter, people sharing, uh, all the stuff on the stage, the World Square outside, the Pokemon Center, everything just seemed like they went above and beyond with the budget this year as far as like they made up for the fact that there was not a Worlds for the past couple of years and put it all into this one. It seemed like it was a really cool place to have been for this event. And I actually wanted to ask you a little bit. You talked about like kind of the stage setup, how it was like in like a dome, half of a like half of a stadium almost, right?
Yeah.
Because
I
I
mean, it
saw
wasn't
like
as
some of the
big as a stadium,
shots.
but
I saw some like pictures on Twitter and stuff of like how much seating there was. It really looked like there was like a pretty sizable amount, and for the finals day, for pretty much all of the games, it looked like it was relatively full as well. Like people were really kind of loaded in there to watch. At least I guess by the time I got to Masters TCG finals, maybe not as much so in the early morning matches, but it seems like people were really loaded in there and hyped, and I can't imagine that like kind of did you end up going back for like kind of those finals days and watch how it all played out, or were you playing in the open still that day on Sunday?
I didn't really watch anything. Where I was in that area just for the opening ceremony. But at the at the end ceremony, I strategically placed myself towards the exit as
So you could see what
as
was happening and dip.
and then yeah, because before the swarm kind of left, and it was actually no like the you couldn't get down. Like even if I wanted to get down in that area, I couldn't. Like it was packed. By the time
That's sick.
it was getting close to the end ceremonies, like throughout probably most of the VG, probably it was probably packed for all of VG, probably packed for at least Masters TCG. So yeah, there was like a line to try and get down towards the um towards that area, towards the stadium like area. So yeah, I couldn't even get down there if I wanted to for the end. But yeah, I strategically placed myself towards the exit as the closing ceremonies were coming to an end. For sure. But yeah, no, it was pretty sick. Yeah, this whole stage setup they had down there was super sick for sure. But yeah, the open. I was playing in the open at that point still.
Got it.
Open one a while.
So, in speaking of playing, you played at the World Championships. So, as we talked about in the last few episodes, obviously it was a day one, day two, and then day three sort of competition, where day three just being kind of the final top cut,
Yeah,
playing down
we
to
almost
the final match.
we almost had enough players for the +5. We were 7 short. It was 7 or 17. It was pretty
Yeah.
close. So we almost had enough players to get the +5, which would definitely be cool to see for sure. It does feel a little bit, especially at the World Championships, it does feel a little bit kind of cut short as far as the rounds go. Like you don't really play that many rounds for sure. But yeah, I ended up top 32 in the main event. I got to play on stream, which is sick against Miloslav. I tied that round, and then it kind of went all downhill from there. I actually remember like as I was exiting the stage, what went through my head is like I think with that tie, I've just entered a bad timeline. And then I hit a Reggie deck in the next round with Path to the Peaks. And even though I had the Empoleon in my Ice Rider deck, the Path to the Peaks, I was able to actually hide the Empoleon until game three, which was cool. Um,
Is that
and so
something
like
you
the
went
first
in like in those type of situations where it's like it feels like it might be a tough matchup? Is that how you try to approach it when the opportunity presents itself? Like if your hand plays out in a way that you
yeah.
can play to hide it, is that something you really try to go after?
Yeah, so basically, game one I lost pretty quickly, and I decided just not to show it in that game. In the game two, I was like, okay, I'm going to start by attacking with. I forget if I opened up with Palkia or Ice Rider as my main attacker first, but I was like, I'm just going to start attacking, and if I can just win this game without it, if they get the KO this turn, I'm going to use the Empoleon immediately. But if I get ahead on the prize trade far enough, and through a couple like strategic KOs of KOing the correct Pokemon, the correct situations, I was able to maintain my prize lead to win the game two. So when I drew my third prize card, I was like, okay, if they whiff the KO this turn, I just go attacker, 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 and then I don't need Empoleon anymore. And they whiffed, and I was like, all right, cool. Now they don't know about my Empoleon yet. And so in game one and game two, they were super aggressive with their Path to the Peaks, discarding them, putting them in play. So in game three, I was like, okay, if they're equally aggressive like that, then maybe I can pull out this win. And they were off the start. They put one in play immediately. I got out like a turn two Empoleon. And of course, they didn't see it coming. And then they immediately had the Path to the Peak, the next Path to the Peak to respond to it. So yeah, definitely went on my way to try and hide it for game three. Got to the game three, had it hidden, but they still played Path and were still able to find them. So I lost there, and then I had a pretty rough whiff in the
Oh,
next
I guess
round.
before we get too much
Oh, go
farther
ahead.
into this, you should probably just talk about your deck choice process. Like,
Oh, true, true, true.
yeah, what deck you ended up playing? Because not everyone necessarily watched your live stream game. So, what did you play? Why did you choose to play it? Or what were some of like the things you were considering as well as you were prepping? Because you were already playing in day two. Day one
Yeah.
had happened, so you got to kind of see a little bit play out. Were you already pretty sold on what you wanted to play before day one happened, or did anything that happened in day one change what you wanted to do?
Yeah, like Mewtwo v Union was definitely a consideration. That got kind of pushed out once we saw people playing the Crabominable in Palkia, so that was one of them. So we ended up playing. I ended up playing Ice Rider, B Barrel, Palkia in the end. And the other considerations were the Mewtwo v Union deck, which got pushed out after the meta, and then our second choice was actually Flying Pikachu, B Barrel. I don't know what list we kind of would have ended up on. We definitely wouldn't have been playing Decidueye or anything like that. Probably would have been pretty similar to something like I had played at NAIC, but that was our second choice. But when we kind of talked about it and we looked at what happened in day one, and in day one, it was like 50% was Palkia. It was actually insane. It was like 54% or something ridiculous. Like, that is absurd. Um, yeah,
A lot
it's
of
just
Palkia day one.
crazy. Um, when we talked about it, we were like, we definitely wanted to bring something different that we felt had a slight edge against Palkia. And then, something that we felt like could handle a majority of the meta. And it did end up winning our spreadsheet as well, like Ice Rider, the Ice Rider Palkia B Barrel. Maybe a little bit inflated from Grant's opinion, but I think even when I toned his uh, win percentages down a little bit, it was still the number one deck on our spreadsheet. So we're like, all right, let's run it. Seems pretty good, and we did pretty well. Like I got top 32. Grant got 11th with the deck, and then Caleb bubbled unfortunately out of the top 32. Had the 5-2-1 record, same as me, but ended up in the top 37 area somewhere. I think is that what it was. So unfortunate that Caleb wasn't able to get in the top 32 with me and Grant, but I think still a pretty good showing for the three of us playing the deck. So I think the deck choice was solid. I felt pretty confident like every round. Like I didn't feel like there was any deck I was scared to play against. I guess except for Mew, but Mew is not a deck that I think was super popular in the day two. Then like I said, I unfortunately hit that Regigigas with the Pats of the Peak, which is not good. I did beat a Gigas in the open without Pats of the Peak. It's a little bit easier when they don't have the Pats of the
I'm
Peak.
sure.
And then after that round, I hit a Palkia and I had some unfortunate whiffs. I just couldn't find an energy on my last turn of the game that would have got me that win. And who knows where I could have gone from there. But I took a loss in that one, and
So
I
that
was
put
two
you
two
at
one.
X. Yeah, 2-2-1.
Yeah, and I managed to get three more wins after that. Didn't play against anything too crazy or anything. Just strung together three wins after that to settle for a top 32 placement. So not what I wanted. Definitely want to try and push for, top cut contention, whether that be solidly in top eight or someone on the play in with the asymmetrical cut. Wasn't able to pull that off this time around, but definitely going to try and push for that in the next one. And then I played the same deck in the open as well and got 128. So
Some
I think that's
CP
really
to
solid
start the
though.
season off is not too bad.
Yeah, hopefully replace that finish, but maybe it'll matter for like a stipend or something.
for sure. Definitely. Well, congratulations, Azul. I know I told you this before as well. Like, I know you're a fierce competitor, and you definitely want more for yourself. You aim high for those wins and those top eights and stuff like that. But getting top 32 in the world is pretty dang good. And you should definitely be proud of it. So, congratulations, man. Super happy for you.
Yeah, I'll settle for it for this time around.
So I gotta ask, I guess, before we really move on. So once you get to that point of like 2-2-1, um, does it really feel? Do you feel kind of like deflated in that moment? And how do you like kind of dial it back in to focus up? Because playing for top 32 is still super relevant. I mean, because top 32 gets $1,500 plus a bunch of extra swag, the top 32 bag, the champions festivals, all that stuff. Like, there's a bunch worth playing for. So even though you know you're out of cut, how do you kind of dial it back in and just like focus up?
I mean, for me, what usually happens is I usually like need a couple rounds to push for that. Like, it was definitely deflating. Like, hitting the Reggie with Path to the Peak, and I was like, all right. And then I whiffed really bad against the Palkia. I'm not gonna lie, I probably would have lost my next round if my opponent, like, I was not playing that well. I was kind of like zoned out, just kind of playing Pokemon, not checking my prize cards or anything like that. If my opponent didn't misplay pretty poorly in both games in the next round, I probably would have lost that one and been out. And I wouldn't have like been too beat up about it because it was like once I was out of contention for top eight, I was just kind of like, it's whatever at this point. I'm obviously going to play for top 32, um, but then after I got that win, tried a little bit harder in my next win, and then I was dialed back in for the top 32 winning in or whatever you want to call it in the last round. So, but yeah, I definitely was out of it after that. After at the point where I was no longer in contention for top eight for sure.
Definitely a
Just
bummer,
it just
but
took a couple rounds to get it just that's the way it is for me usually. It just takes me a couple rounds to get back into it. Like if I'm at a regional in day 2 and I go out of contention for top 8, like I almost just don't care anymore. Like obviously you get, $500 if you get top 16, but like I'm there to try and win the tournament, and once I can no longer win the tournament, it does matter. Like I'm still going to try from that point on, but I definitely just care less, which is something I definitely want to try and fix. Like it'd be nice to, and it'd be nice to end a season with, instead of a couple top 32s and top 64 finishes at regionals, being like top 16 or top 8 like every single regional you go to, right? So like that would be
yes.
nice to have that extra placements. Of course, it definitely looks better to be in the top 16 of more tournaments than top 64. So
Definitely. I
definitely
mean,
try
and it
and
is hard to get top 16 at these regionals, especially when they have 1,000 people at them, Like,
yeah,
that's a lot of people to try to be better than on a specific day, or like, have hit the better matchups, whatever it may be.
that's true. It's true for sure. So
Well, we've definitely got plenty to talk about when it comes to the meta at Worlds. So we heard what you played, the Ice Rider, Palkia, Bibarel deck. Definitely pretty unique, something that Grant had been kind of hyping up, who's someone you ended up testing with, and also played the deck to an 11th place finish, like you said. And you guys had one of the more interesting decks in cut, but in top 32, I should say. But there was definitely some other really notable things. So before we dive into the top cut specifically, what were some of the standouts for you from top 32? Obviously, there was a ton of Palkia represented here in top 32. And is that pretty
yeah.
representative of like what the actual day 2 field was of the 200 something players as well?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, like when 54% of day 1 was playing Palkia, a lot of those players I think who made it to day 2 with Palkia probably just played Palkia again. So that was already going to be a large number of Palkia players, and then you had like Bradner and crew playing Palkia. Um, the Australians were playing Palkia as well, and then everyone else playing Palkia. Like it's just there was just a lot of Palkia in Teleon. I think like every table was playing. There was a Palkia at like every table, like in every match, almost every match.
It's
It was
pretty
just a lot of
wild.
Palkia, a lot of Palkia. And if it wasn't Palkia and Teleon, the deck you were playing against still maybe had Palkia. One of the cooler decks to be in, the top 32 was Medi and Miloslav and I played against Miloslav on stream round 3 or lunch break round 3, was their Palkia Jolteon deck, where it was kind of like a more aggressive Palkia deck, and then you just have a 2/2 Jolteon in there to shut down the Inteleon engines from decks, or you had like me and Grant with the Palkia Ice Rider. So there's still, like, even when it wasn't Palkia and Inteleon, there were still so many decks with Palkia in general.
Definitely. I mean, the card is just that good, right? 2 energy, a ton of damage, a lot of HP, a really good ability, just kind of a
Yeah.
recipe for a pretty powerful card. So yeah, besides the Palkias, there's a ton of other interesting things here. Kind of the stuff you would expect. A little bit less on the Arceus Intellion, which was one of the big two decks that people were kind of talking about coming in. I believe actually only two of those ended up making top 32 though. Was that
Yeah.
something you were a little surprised by, or maybe a little bit more expected?
I guess I did play against two. Well, I guess I played against Bert round one, who was playing more of a Charizard based build. Like I kind of like think of it as like tempo Arceus, where it's like you just swing aggressively with Arceus early, and then Charizard's kind of your closer. And then I did play against like a more traditional Arceus and Teleon at some point as well. I'm not really too surprised. Like the Palkia matchup is unfavorable, and I think it's just taken people time to realize that. So we had to go through the whole thing with NAIC where it was like a 50-50 split. And then a bunch of online tournaments where Arceus and Time was still being, the second most played deck. And then you saw people on Twitter who were like, kind of like, no, it's 50-50 or slightly favored. And it was like everyone was trying to fight for Arceus and Teleon. But like when you get two really good players and sit down and play the match against Arceus and Teleon versus Palkia and Teleon, Palkia comes out on top, like, 55-60% of the time, right? Like it is just favorable. And Palkia just is the better deck, right? It can just handle more situations better than Arceus and Teleon can, and more matchups and more unknown, for sure. So it's not really a huge surprise to me that it didn't do well. Actually, like leading into the actual day of competition, I was like, kind of, that's something I was bringing up to my group was just like, I don't think Arceus and Teleon is going to be very popular, and it definitely just won't do very well. So if you get to like round three, the chance of you hitting an Arceus and Teleon is like not going to happen, right? Which is one of the things you can factor into your kind of deck choices. Like once you get to a certain point in the tournament, the win rate of a deck is going to hurt where it actually sits in your chance to hit a deck. And so yeah, not too surprised that there was only two in the top 32. I think a lot of people finally came around on how good the deck actually is in the meta in general.
Something I was a little surprised by was to see two Regigigas in the top 32. There was a Japanese player called Tomoki Masuda, and then also Pablo Meza, aka Tablemon, content creator in the space, someone we both know well. A very good player, someone who's had a lot of success at the World Championships. I believe top 4 in 2005 and top 8 in 2008. And I know he top 8 in 2017. I believe it was 2008 as well. Yeah, I've played the Regigigas, which is something that was kind of under the radar maybe. It was something that like was really popular kind of at the start of the Astral Radiance format. Definitely fell off quite a bit. It did gain a little bit with the Pokestop from the Pokemon Go set, but not everyone was necessarily playing it. As you said, you played against Regigigas, who was still playing the Path to the Peaks, which was previously popular before Pokestop came
Yeah, and
out.
actually, Masuda is the player I played against. I just
Ah,
like checked to confirm. I was like, I'm pretty sure it was Masuda. Yeah, so one with Pokestop. Pablo was playing the Pokestops, and one without. It was like a little bit interesting. Rahul Reddy actually also is someone who also played Reggie, I believe, at the event. So there was like a couple players just all of a sudden like being like, all right, it's Reggie time for some reason. And I
for
was like,
some
I
reason.
I was surprised, but I don't think the deck's that good. I don't think it was good enough to Reggie time. Uh, so I don't know why people brought it to the tournament, to be honest. But if maybe it's just your deck and it's just something you want to play, then sure, go for it. But yeah, I
I
don't
mean, it
know.
does
I
feel
don't
like
know
it has a
why.
pretty good Palkia matchup, though, right? Like,
It's like 50-50. I think it's actually slightly unfavored if they played the jammer. I think it's just unfavorable.
sure.
You don't even need but beforehand it was just bad because people had the Temple of Sinnoh, so they could do the whole Temple of Sinnoh, double cross switcher up your Regidrago, jammer, knockout. Good luck. So now they don't have the Sinnoh, but even without the Sinnoh, it's still like a 50-50 to slightly unfavored. So that's like the problem with Reggie. It's like your Palkia matchup is not favorable. It's not like okay, yes, I hit the Palkia. It's like all right, we hit Palkia. Let's see how this goes.
Um, yeah, so that was definitely one I was really interested to see. There's still a few Mews sprinkled in here as well. Several, I think
Yeah.
3 in the top 32, plus one more that was in the top 8. Andre Chiasan, who, of course, has played it a ton this season, done very well with it, and then ended up making top 8 at Worlds with it. We'll talk a little bit more about Andre's list in the top 8 section, but Mew, for a deck that kind of started the season as the big bad deck to beat, really, as we moved into Worlds, it felt like it had favored out or fallen out of favor. Palkia is just so good, so consistent, so powerful. It's hard to justify choosing to play Mew instead. Some people did choose to play it still, and still did pretty decently. Gabe Smart also getting top 32. He's also someone who's played it a ton this season, I believe, right?
Yeah. hmm Yeah, I mean, I think the meta was just getting better from you overall. And we even saw some Palkia players, namely the Australians, cutting Path to the peak, which is like one of the win conditions for Palkia in that matchup is Roxanne Path. Um, so I mean, people were just like not disrespecting Mew, but just like respecting it less. It wasn't like, oh, it's 25% of the meta or 20% of the meta. You have to beat it. It's like, well, if I don't hit it all in this tournament when it's only 10% of the meta, then that's kind of fine if my deck is good against everything else, right? And we still saw quite a few players still have like Palkia always has a fine matchup against Mew without the Roxanne Path combo. It's like favored with Roxanne Path, and I think it's like 50-50, I would say, probably without it. As long as like the Mew player is playing the catcher build, which I actually super surprised to see that Andre chose not to play the catchers, because I feel like that is such a big deal in the Palkia matchup. Like when you go second, if you're just like turn one Meloetta or Psychic Leaping a Manaphy or a Sobble, you're usually not in a pretty good spot. But if you can catch or KO the Palkia, that's where you can kind of stay on even footing with them. So, but yeah, Andre sticking to just the boss's orders. I know they've been like a big fan of just like not wanting to play catchers for a long time now, and
Yeah.
it paid off in the end for sure. But yeah, Mew. I mean, just less decks. There's not as many dark stuff going around. The people are not disrespecting Mew, but just not every deck has 4 path and a bunch of dark attackers and stuff like that. So it's like it's kind of more even across the board with the meta than kind of being hated on.
And then two more really interesting ones that I definitely want to talk about that made the top 16. First off is Ross Cawthon getting 15th place with a Radiant Charizard Inteleon deck. Now, I know you tested some Radiant Charizard Inteleon box type of decks. Ross ended up choosing to go with it and made it all the way through day one with the deck and got top 16, which I think is a
Yeah.
pretty great feat in and of itself. His
And
list
also,
definitely seemed really solid, and Ross is definitely. I mean, he already was and should have been considered one of the greats, but this just
yeah.
continues to solidify his spot as one of the all-time Pokemon TCG greats. For anyone who doesn't know, Ross Cawthon, the only player to qualify for every single Pokemon World Championships in the TCG, and I think I saw he posted on Facebook about it, and I think it said that he has gotten top 16 or better at 8 of the 16 world championships that have happened, top 16 or better, which is wild to say. And also, pretty good to have gotten top 4 3 times in there.
Yeah. I feel like Ross
Top 4 or
really
better.
also like specifically with this one, Ross actually tied the winning in with Miloslav. So Ross could have been in. It would have put another person in on the bubble. We would have had 2 play-ins instead of just the one. So that was a tie on the winning in from Ross. And yeah, I mean, I feel like Ross just like obviously one of the greatest players of all time, and really like pulls out all the stops come Worlds. Right? Like Ross will, it feels like maybe messes around with in the normal season a little bit. Played Rapid Strike Malamar up until this tournament, like exclusively.
Hey
I'm
man,
pretty
maybe
sure.
he
Just
just thought it was the best deck for those tournaments.
yeah,
All
and I
right.
mean, if you enjoy, it's like never been a bad deck, right? And if you enjoy it, go for it, right? It had some solid finishes, top 32 at NAIC and stuff like that. But then come Worlds, Ross isn't messing around anymore. Kind of bring out the big guns, bring out something new, something fresh, get that full kind of advantage that you can get by not just picking up Palkia and Teleon and bringing something that is different and makes your opponent really have to think about what is in their deck, and then it's just a really good deck as well. I've been playing a lot of it on my stream recently, and the list is super, super good. I think the only things I've lost to so far have been myself and then like bad matchups, like
Yeah.
unwinnable matchups, like Reggie. Reggie's pretty tough. They just attack first and you fall behind. So
Duraludon
yeah,
seems hard too. Ross tied a Duraludon on stream, I think.
yeah, that's definitely a tough one as well. I think it's definitely winnable. It's not like an unfavorable matchup. It's
Right.
just like it's a lot you got to string together to get that win. But yeah, the deck's really good for sure. The Ross Cawthon's deck. And I guess the other standout in top 16 is definitely Adam Hawkins with the Arceus Aggron, right? Who would have thought Aggron V?
Wild. A wild one. I mean, it was a meme a while ago when Arceus came out. Where it was just like you pick a color and then pick a VMAX and pair it with Arceus V Star, and you're good to go. Maybe that's what Adam did before this tournament. But no, Aggron V and VMAX actually kind of cool. The Aggron V, I guess specifically, like is where I think probably Adam got a lot of the value from, because Merciless Strike, its attack does do a ton of damage for a metal and 4 colorless, so you gotta get a lot of energies on this guy.
Yeah.
A metal and 4 colorless, it deals 150 damage, but if your opponent's active Pokemon already has any damage counters on it, this attack does 150 more damage. So you can do 300 damage. Of course, you throw a double turbo on, 280, and we all know 280 is kind of the magic number to hit for right now in the format. So you just Trinity charge 3 energies onto it once and then double turbo attach. You're swinging really hard, and it's got 230 hit points as well.
Yeah, yeah. You got the goon in there to get that damage on there ahead of
Yes.
time. So up against like Arceus decks, 230 is kind of out of reach. There was also a big charm in Adam's list, so you can get it really out of reach against the Arceus decks. And I think probably up against the Palkia decks, you're probably looking to go into the VMAX a little bit more aggressively, which does do 270 damage. You do deal 30 to yourself, which is kind of rough. And also, it does also cost 5 energy. It's also metal quad colorless to do 270. But you get a
It's
choice
2
belt on
metal,
there.
two metal, 3
Oh,
colorless,
2 metal, 3 colors, okay. So, I mean, yeah, it's
which
gonna be
is
about the
definitely
same
worse.
setup. Yeah. You can't double
Right,
turbo
right.
it. But, yeah, you get a choice belt on there, you're hitting for 280 still, so you're still, like, 1 KOing most relevant things, and there is double Raihan on
I
the list, so you
actually
could get kinda
I
like the 5 basic energies on there.
I actually wonder if this card is even in here for that purpose, and maybe is it more so in here for Aggron VMAX's first attack, Cracking Stomp, which does 150, and then you discard the top card of your opponent's deck. So it's kind of the like tech for the Mewtwo V Union. Maybe that was the reason instead.
I feel like against Palkia, you'd need something to survive a hit, but be able to 1-hit KO them. If you're attacking with Aggron, I think you're losing that trade every
Oh
time. I
yeah,
guess
it
with
does
the big
still. Yeah,
charm.
you've got the belts to KO
Yeah,
still.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, you need something to like survive. There's no way you're beating Palkia with just the Aggron V's, I feel like. Also, Adam Hawkins also got top 16 in one of the opens as well. So
Well, and he got top 16. I'm pretty sure. I'll double check real quick here on Limitless. I'm pretty sure he just got top 16 at NAIC. Oh no, he got top 64 at NAIC with Control. But
yeah, not
still pretty
Aggron though.
wild.
So
Top 32 at Milwaukee as well. Top 32 in Lily as well, or Lil regional. So he's had a pretty stellar season. Adam is also someone who is, he's been around for a while, but and always kind of
yeah,
plays unique decks. So I always enjoy kind of seeing what he comes up with. Definitely not afraid to throw something wacky out there. And getting top 16 with Aggron VMAX is definitely got to be pretty high up there on the accomplishments list. That's pretty dope.
yeah, definitely. And I actually played a little bit with it. That X, I looked at it. I was like, "There's no way this is good." I was like, he just had to get carried by it being Arceus B Barrel Path Marty. Like that was my initial thought when I looked at the list. But the Aggron actually is like really scary, and it really forces your opponent to have to like either deal with it immediately, which is hard to do. Like the 230 HP is like awkward to like for most decks to deal with early, and then you could big charm it, and then if not, it evolves, or you just start swinging with it and you just get ahead. And it's like very much a prize race deck. Like you're just trying to get the like try and get the first knockout or somehow get ahead, and then trying to maintain your lead with Aggron, just being able to do so much damage, and kind of is like almost uncounterable in that sense as well. It's just your opponent just does not have a good answer for. It's just hard to have a good answer for Aggron consistently. So
Hey,
yeah, the deck's
listen,
actually pretty good.
I will say, when I did my Brilliant Stars set review, I did give Aggron V a 2 out of 5. Didn't give it the 1. I was like, you know what? This thing can do 300 damage, okay? That's got to pop up at some point. So big shout outs and thank you to Adam for solidifying Aggron V as a 2 out of 5 card, at least, at minimum. I did give Aggron VMAX still a 1 out of 5, though. I will say that. The
I
V
mean,
got
the
a
V
better
is
score than the
definitely
VMAX.
the V is definitely better than the VMAX. I will say that for sure. It definitely feels way better to attack with the V than the VMAX. So you were right on with the predictions, I think, with that one.
So then let's move on to top cuts. So like we mentioned, it was not a top 8. It was an asymmetrical cut. We did talk about kind of how that works a little bit on last week's episode, or 2 weeks ago's episode, I guess. So the top 9 players included Calvin Connor and Otavio Gouveia, who had to do the play-in match to determine which of the two of them would make it in to the actual top 8. And there's a big difference between top 16 and top 8. A lot more prize money.
Definitely.
Of course, getting a top 8 Champions Festival stamped card versus a top 32 Champions Festival or a top 16 Champions Festival. You also get, did they do top 8 playmats this year? I know they've always in the past kind of done top 8 hats. I think there's probably top 8 playmats
Probably.
as well. Oh yeah, there probably is because there is for regionals, right? So,
There was top 32 hats. I got a hat for top 32. So they definitely
okay.
got a hat, top 8 hat probably. You also
So
get like I think you get one of each like
yeah.
Champion says, like, you get a 32, a 16.
Yes.
Actually, this year they only gave you usually get 2. Like, last time I got top 32, they gave me 2 top 32s. I only got 1 this time. So
Interesting.
unfortunately, they're only giving out 1. I would have liked another one, but apparently they're only doing 1s now.
That is interesting, because that's usually
Yeah, it's just
another
like
big, like, they give you two, and a lot of
yeah.
people, what they would do is they'd keep one and they'd sell one because those things are worth
Yep.
several $100s, right? And so you get to
Mhm.
keep one as your keepsake, and then make a little extra money too. But okay,
Yeah, they're
yeah,
getting
and
stingy with the cards.
so there was a lot of Palkia in top eight, or top
Yeah.
cut, I should say. The one Mew, Andre Chiasson, of course, and then if we look here on the Limitless page, the 1, 2, 3 decks, top 3 decks, were Arceus, Flying, Pikachu. So let's talk about this just a little bit. We've talked a bit about Palkia already. We talked a little bit about Mew. Um, because this is a deck that you were not super hype on leading into Worlds.
Yeah.
You obviously won the North American International Championships with the deck. You didn't feel like it was in as good of a spot, but obviously things changed a little bit for you because it was one of your top choices for Worlds this year. You ended up going with the Ice Rider Bibarel. So what kind of in that last week changed that made your mind kind of go like, you know what, maybe this is still a decent meta for the Arceus Flying Pikachu?
I think it's just the fact, like, I, like, knew Arceus and Thailand was just not gonna be as popular.
And that was kind of the big deterrent, was
Yeah.
like how hyped up Arceus Intellion was previously.
Yeah, basically for the most part, like, that was, like, the biggest thing to kinda worry about is just like, well, that's, like, a pretty it's not a terrible matchup. Like, I went 1-on-1 against it at NAIC, so it's, like, not terrible. It's definitely unfavorable, but, if there's gonna be a lot of it, you don't really wanna play the deck overall, into that kind of meta, but the closer we got to Worlds, and especially after seeing the day 1 meta, it was just, like, a lot of Palkia, and it's like, well, a lot of Palkia. I don't think Arcantalion is gonna be very played, especially, like, I think it would I thought like, especially my mindset was, like, in day 2, I thought it would be less played as well. Like, day 1 players, I think, were more likely to play Arceus and Teleon than day 2 players, right?
Sure.
I think that is just one of those things with just like once you have a better grasp and understanding of just like what are the best decks, like that comes with being a better player, right? And the day 2 players on in general are going to be better than the day 1 players, right? Yeah, I was like, there's going to be less of it in day 2. There's not that much in day 1. There's going to be less of it in day 2, and then like you get the Palkia matchup is fine. The Mew matchup is fine. You're good against like the random stuff like potentially Reggie's. Ice Rider was like the big thing that was kind of one of the deterrents was just like Ice Rider is going to be tough if you hit those. And it definitely had Ice Rider was getting like quite a bit of hype heading up like leading up into World. I feel like Ice Rider had quite a bit of hype, but it was mostly on the like Inteleon side of things, which I don't think that deck is um as good. So I don't know. It was up there. And obviously it won and got second and got third.
Pretty
And then
solid.
hopefully maybe this I feel like this definitely solidifies the deck as it's not really a meme deck, which I think it's definitely quite a few people thought. And you're definitely favored in the Palkia matchup, I would say, for sure. But there was 2 different builds happening. Daichi and Ryoto. I'm sure they probably tested together because they ended up on very, very similar lists. It actually might just be 1 card different. I actually don't know the differences, but they were very,
See if I
very
can figure it
close.
out.
Um, yeah, it's just 1 trainer card difference, I think. I don't know what it is. Also, one of them played 2 of the V Search EV, and one of them played a 1-1 split. I like the 1-1 split,
Oh,
so
okay.
I definitely like Daichi's list a little bit more.
The Resonant
Uh,
Evolution EV.
yeah. And now I'm like trying to find
It was
this.
an
I want
Evolution
to.
Incense. So Ryota played the Evolution Incense,
Okay,
and
Daichi played the 3rd capsule.
that was, yeah. There you go.
Yeah, the 3rd
That's it.
capsule is interesting. You don't really need 3, but it's not bad to have. Like it's one of the cards you want to find for the Mew or for the Jolteon combo. It's like the hardest card, I guess, to find after they KO the first. If they deal with the first Jolteon, it is the hardest card to find to set up the second Jolteon. So it does create the threat of the second Jolteon more aggressively, I guess, for sure. So, um, and then yeah, so I mean that was interesting to see. They really went all out on not just countering, and I do like the idea behind playing the Jolteon because it doesn't just counter Palkia, but Inteleon's really good, and a lot of the top players were going to gravitate towards playing Inteleon-based decks, whether that be Palkia, which now you just have a greit matchup against because you got Jolteon and Pikachu, or other stuff like Ross's Charizard. Charizard deck, I'm sure, did not want to go up against Daichi or
Nope.
Ryoto with their Flying Pikachu Baby Jolteon deck. So it did cover kind of like a big a big unknown. I think that's one of the. I think that was like a really smart play from them to include the Baby Jolteon because it does cover a huge unknown factor of just a lot of people are going to be playing stuff with Inteleon. Jolteon makes us beat those decks. Okay, we'll put the Jolteon in there.
And then also all three of the decks, in addition to playing Flying Pikachu VMAX and Arceus V-Star, we're playing Hisuian Decidueye V-Star as another option as kind of a fighting attacker for any of the Arceus decks. And notably, none of these Arceus decks were playing Dunsparce either. So it's like they all had this tech for Arceus decks that were not playing Dunsparce while themselves not playing Dunsparce, which is kind of funny.
Yeah. So that does kind of lead to like Andre one upping them, right? A little bit, being like, all right, I'm gonna play Pikachu, I'm gonna play Arceus, but I'm gonna play a 2-2 Hisuian Decidueye. And then also 2-2 B Barrel over the Jolteon. So taking a little bit worse of a Palkia matchup, a little bit worse of a matchup against Inteleon decks in general, but added consistency, really aggressive with the 4 bosses orders, and then that much more prepared for the Arceus matchups with the 2-2 Decidueye, right?
Definitely. And the Decidueye is not just like, it's not a terrible attacker by any means. It does have that 270 hit points, which is definitely, I mean, 10 HP somehow ends up being a huge difference between 270 and 280. There's a lot of different math things that come into play. It is also
Yeah.
weak to Psychic, so against something like Mew VMAX, it's very easy for them to deal with. The Hisuian Decidueye V, however, having the close quarters shooting attack is definitely relevant. Gives you an out against something like the Miltanks that, maybe people are a little worried about with the Mewtwo V Union deck. But overall, yeah, I'm a huge fan of Andre's list. It looks super clean, really consistent. The 4 boss, very aggressive, like you mentioned. And Bibarel, definitely, I think I would favor the Bibarel over the Jolteons personally looking back. I mean, obviously, that's easy to say, I guess, since it did end up winning. But, even just looking back at the meta of the tournament as a whole, like, how necessary really is the Jolteon? Like, sure, it's really good against those other Inteleon decks, but just such a high percentage of the meta is Palkia. You've got a solid enough matchup against it already. Why not just focus a little bit more on your consistency?
Yeah, I definitely feel like that's actually how it ended up going. There wasn't enough other Inteleon decks, right? There wasn't enough Inteleon Charizard or Ice Rider Inteleon or stuff like that to like at the end of the day to warrant maybe the Jolteon. But there was so much Palkia that you really did lock up that matchup that much better, right? Like I definitely think
For sure.
the list with the Baby Jolteon is better against Palkia than Andre's list, but I feel like Andre's list, has its own strengths up against more of the Arceus decks, right? So, also one thing to mention, Andre did not play a Dark Attacker, but still 4 Path 4 Marnie and was able to defeat Andre. Andre defeated Andre in
Yeah.
top 8.
Andre
Marnie
Chiasson.
Path, yeah, was enough to overcome the Mew despite not having a Dark Attacker. So also like the Mewtwo v Union matchup would have been pretty rough as well. Whereas the Japanese players they were playing the Galarian Moltres V, which basically allows you to have infinite dark energy access to make sure even though the Mewtwo V Union decks play Crushing Hammer, the Moltres V will eventually be able to attack and knock out the Mewtwo V
Yeah,
Union, right?
only
So
2 darkness energy though in the list,
yeah,
which it was
which is
pretty
still
wild.
prizing.
Living life on the edge, never prizing darkness energy against Mew.
I mean, you have a little bit of time to maybe get there. But yeah, you at least have an option with the Dark Attacker, whereas that's something that Andre did not want to play. Apparently, he just more invested into the Hisuian Decidueye. I think Andre expected more Arceus Inteleon for sure with the 2-2 Decidueye line there, like fully committing to like uh, a hard counter for other Arceus decks.
Sure,
And
sure,
no Charon's Care, I guess, another thing to mention in both lists. Zero Charon's
definitely.
Care, just aggressive. Just start swinging, set up a different attacker, keep swinging.
Definitely very relevant to mention, and I kind of like that because Sharon's Care, like while it is incredibly powerful in these Arceus decks, it almost like kind of drops your consistency a little bit, and you just kind of now without it focus on the aggression. You can play
Yeah.
bosses orders on those turns. Like sure, you're gonna lose these heavily damaged Pokemon, but you can be more aggressive towards basic Pokemon V before they become V stars. You can, target your opponent's draw by bossing up a Bibarel or, maybe taking out a Drizzile before they have a chance to use Inteleon, which can be really strong as well. So yeah, I definitely am a big fan of Andre's list, and it obviously paid off very well as he was able to become the 2022 world champion in the TCG. Congratulations. Round of applause for Andre Skubal on that finish.
Yeah, definitely. So I think that wraps up our top cut talk, the results. Of course, huge news. And you know what? I actually mentioned this a couple times leading up to Worlds, and everyone always told me, no, TPCI runs Worlds. There's no way that they would put Worlds in Japan because is it TPO? Is that,
It's
I don't
just
even know. I don't,
TPC, the
TPC,
Pokemon
that's what it is.
company.
Yeah. TPC controls everything in Japan as far as the play goes. There's no way that it would happen in Japan. But I was like, that doesn't make that much sense. They can just still run it there. There can be two companies that run Pokemon events existing. Japan's not that small. Like they can fit two people or two groups of people who run Pokemon tournaments in Japan. And Worlds next year
All
is in
right.
Japan.
We get it, bro. I was wrong. You were right. Worlds 2023 in Yokohama, Japan, which is absolutely incredible. Super
It's
stoked to
insane.
see that. I did not think they would do it. I'll admit it. Hey, I was wrong. I was wrong. And this is just proof for anyone out there. I don't have insider info, okay? It doesn't exist because I thought there was no shot this was ever happening. And here you go. We're going to Japan next year, baby. Super cool to see. And I know the Japanese players were pumped about it for sure. The game is made in Japan and they have had to travel outside of their own country for the biggest tournament in their game for the
Yeah.
past, since 2004, since the World Championships started. And so massive W for the Japanese players and really honestly a lot of other players from around the world
Yeah.
because people are going to have an opportunity to travel to a country that they maybe never would have had if it was not for this.
Yeah, and I know there's been a lot of talk on Twitter. Like, I mean, I do know there's quite a few restrictions to be able to get in Japan right now, and hopefully that lightens up. A year from now, hopefully it becomes a little bit easier
It's
to.
so hard to predict what things are going to look like.
Yeah, exactly, and maybe they do somehow. Maybe they do have insider info on that, and they just know that things are gonna
Or they
lighten
feel
up as far as.
confident enough to host worlds
Yeah,
there that things are going to be easier for outside of
yeah, they definitely want
yeah.
people who get their worlds invite if they have the financial means to get there to be able to go. And that is one thing that people are bringing up is that it is going to be pretty expensive for a lot of people to go to worlds in Japan. But I don't think that's a reason to not have a worlds in Japan. Like maybe this is your if you can't afford it, maybe this is just your year to take a year off, right? Like if it's not in sometimes it's not going to be in the cards for everyone, right? Even if you get your worlds invite or could get your worlds invite, maybe take a year off this time around. I mean, I know I'm super excited. I'm going to be going, and it's going to be great. I don't think this is something to be kind of just because that is something that comes with having it in Japan. That is something to be like kind of made a focal point of it being in Japan. Like it is there, and if it doesn't work out for you, then it's just not going to work out for you. But it shouldn't be a drag on it being in Japan.
Yeah, there's definitely always kind of been this discussion around like accessibility to a world's invite. And I mean, it is meant to be the most exclusive event of the year. Like, I don't think just anyone and everyone who wants to get an invite to the world championships necessarily has to get an invite to the world championships. Like, I don't think that you should necessarily be able to get an invite to the biggest tournament of the year by only playing in your local area. I think you have to be able to have proven yourself on a little bit bigger of a stage by getting, some points at some of these bigger tournaments. And usually, regionals are spread out enough where people can, try to make a trip out to one or two and try to get their shot at that. And I think that people need to be okay with the fact that they just like are playing Pokemon and not having to play for a world's invite. I think that's the thing where like Pokemon has only given the players one thing to try and achieve, which is get a world's invite. And so there's just so much emphasis on that people kind of lose sight of like just being able to play and enjoy the game and not having to be so focused on that being the one thing that they try to achieve.
Yeah, and I think like that'll also like if you don't, it was one of those things I feel like, and like this is like a not even just a Pokemon thing, but it's like when it's something you don't focus on, it'll also come along, right? You'll like if you're not making it that big of a deal and stressing out and like um worrying about it, you'll end up with your world's invite if you go to enough. events, right? Like, if you're not adding that extra stress and pressure to, have to perform well and then, play poorly or misplay because of it, then you'll probably end up getting there, for sure. But yeah, but like I know that's like one big thing that I just saw a lot of people mention was just like it's gonna be hard to get to Japan, and that's true. But yeah, maybe this just isn't the world's for you to go to then. Like if it's not feasible for you to make it to Japan for whatever reason, financially or other, then just sit this one out, and then hopefully, I mean, next year, hopefully they keep kind of touring the world. That's what I hope. I hope it goes somewhere else. Maybe it'll come back to North America, but I hope it stays out of North America for a little while. I think that's fair for the rest of the world. We've had it in North America a long time, and to be honest, maybe a little bit selfishly, I definitely want to go explore and see new places personally. So happy it's in Japan, and I hope it stays out of North America the following year as well.
And so there was also another huge announcement at the World Championships, the announcement of the new game mechanic for Pokemon Scarlet and Pokemon Violet, which will be the return of Pokemon EX. Two prize Pokemon. We're not going to go super in depth on this week. We just don't have the time for it. We will be giving kind of our more in-depth thoughts on next week's episode, so be sure to come back and check that out. But just kind of initial thoughts, maybe, Azul. I know me personally, I'm very excited to see this.
So, I mean, yeah, like someone asked me if I'm excited for EX Pokemon to be back, and I don't really care that it's EX Pokemon. They could have called it BX Pokemon or DX Pokemon, whatever. It doesn't really matter what they
As long as it has
label.
X in the title.
I mean, I guess maybe it needs to have X, sure, but like it doesn't really matter what they could call it. They could call it, Notepad Pokemon or something. I don't know. They could literally
Do you
call
have a
it
notepad
anything.
on your desk? Is that what made you
Yeah,
say
there's a
that?
notepad on my desk. I'm more excited for the video that they had along with the announcement, where it definitely feels like the message I got from that video is a little bit of like, we know our player base has not enjoyed the game the way it's been the last couple years or maybe for a while. And for me, it hasn't been that long personally. Definitely, maybe a year or two. It's felt a little bit out of whack. Um, and they even said in the video, we want to bring back the idea of comebacks, right? Being able to come from behind, utilize powerful stage two Pokemon, it sounds like, as well, to be able to be part of that. And that's what I'm excited for. You could call it, Notepad Pokemon or whatever. That's what I'm excited for. I'm excited for the game to continue to be fun and cool and interesting. And I don't think the game is completely void of that right now, but it
Mhm.
sounds like that is definitely something that the creators of the game feel like they could have done better, could have been doing better, and want to do better. So that's the important thing that I got from the little announcement video for sure.
And we will go more in depth on this, like I said, in next
Yeah.
week's episode. So be sure to come back, check that out. I'm very excited for this as well. Pokemon Notepad are going to be amazing. Can't wait.
Super excited. All
uh,
right.
yep, go ahead.
Yeah. Up next, guess that flavor text. It is my turn this week to pick a flavor text for Chip to guess. If you guys are new here, every week, me or Chip will pick a flavor text for the other one to try and guess what Pokemon goes with that flavor text. So I'm going to read it to Chip here in a second, and then Chip has to try and guess what Pokemon is that flavor text from. We also do this thing where we have 3 lifelines. So initially, if you don't use a lifeline and you get it right, make your guess, get it right, you get 4 points. I think we're currently tied at 2-3, 2
I'm
and
pretty
2.
sure I'm ahead, actually.
I thought I tied it up.
No, because I
Are you up
got.
again by 1?
Oh wait, no, you did tie it up last week.
Yeah.
You
So are we 2
did.
and 2 or 3 and 3?
You ended up coming through clutch with Celebi. I believe we are 3-3. I have not been
Okay.
keeping up the scoreboard as much as I should. Not gonna lie.
So yeah, we have 4 points if you get it right without using a lifeline, and 3 lifelines. Every time you use a lifeline, it becomes worth 1 less point. What set the card is from, what stage the card is, and then read an attack name from the card. And then if you use all 3 lifelines and then still get it right, you still get 1 point. Chip, are you ready for this week's flavor text?
Let's get it, baby.
It enshrouds itself with sand to protect itself from germs. It does not enjoy getting wet
From germs.
from germs.
Interesting. It enshrouds itself in sand. So some of the first Pokemon I think of, there's obviously like the Sand Castle Pokemon, Sandygast, and oh shoot, what's the other one's name? The big one, a Palo Sand, right? But there's also, even older than that. Some other sand Pokemon would be something like Trapinch. I know Trapinch likes to kind of to hide away, burrow down into the desert, into the sand. Maybe Flygon or Vibrava. I don't know. Can I get it one more time, Azul?
Yeah, the
What?
way you said it, yeah, I got you. It enshrouds itself with sand to protect itself from germs. It does not enjoy getting wet. Is there a lot of germs in water? Is that why? Because apparently it does not like germs.
Well, it might be a ground or rock type Pokemon,
Oh, true, true,
which
true.
are weak to water. So that could be where we're at here. I do believe
That
Trapinch is
does
a
make sense.
ground type. The germs thing is kind of what's throwing me off here. Like I didn't realize we had a germaphobe Pokemon in universe. So that's kind of where my question mark is at the moment. I definitely will have to use some lifelines here. I think I'm gonna start with what stage is the card.
Card is a basic.
Well, Trapinch is a basic. I'm definitely leaning that direction right now, I will say. Could also be a Sandy Gas. Let me have you read an attack name.
Tackle.
Okay, well, that was useless. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and use all three lifelines here. I'm just. Am I gonna use? Well, I don't know if I should use them or not because I don't know if anything you say. I guess if I know that the set doesn't have a Trapinch in it, it would matter. So yeah, go ahead and give me the set that the card's from.
Primal Clash.
I am pretty sure that there is a Trapinch in Primal Clash because I think there's an ancient trait Flygon. Is there an ancient trait Flygon? There is definitely a Flygon in Primal Clash though. So I've said Trapinch from the start. I'm not 100% sure if it's Trapinch, but that's my best guess at this point. I'm just gonna go with it. Locking it in. Trapinch, little orange
No,
clam
it is
guy.
not Trapinch.
Dang it. Is there a Trapinch in Primal Clash? Did I mess up? What
I
is it,
don't
Azul? What
think
is it?
so. It is Potas.
Oh,
Potas, the germaphobe Pokemon.
is it actually the germaphobe Pokemon?
I mean, I don't know, but
Yeah.
after that, it might as well be.
Trapinch. I want to see if there's one in Primal Clash.
I don't think
There
so.
is. There is one
There
in Primal
is? Oh,
Clash.
okay. How would you know that? Like, how do you like? That's like blows my mind that you like know. Like every time you like know
I
if
just
it is or
remember,
isn't in
man.
this.
I don't know. I just remember. I've seen it. I just kind of, I don't know. I remember. I've opened up a lot of packs before. Okay, give me a break.
I guess
Um,
like, that still doesn't make any sense though. All right.
Hippopotas from Primal Clash. Let me get it up on the screen real quick here for everyone.
Yeah, let us
There he
know in the comment
is.
section. Did you guys get it? Did you guess a Potas? Were you on the Trapinch train with Chip and Crash and Burn? Where did you end up? How many points did you get this week?
I think I would have done
what
better if you gave me the other attack name. Instead of tackle, we went with
was the what
rolling
was the other?
tackle.
Oh, okay.
That was a joke because it's
Yeah,
the
I
same
don't. I don't
thing.
think. I don't think you would have guessed Trapinch though. Trapinch is not a rolling tackle type
Bro,
of poke.
he's
I
got
don't
like
think.
a round little nose. Maybe he like kind of just gets on it and like.
Yeah, but there's no way a Trapinch has like if I wouldn't ever think a Trapinch would have they have like Sand Tomb or like Call for Family. Like Trapinches never have they would not have tackle and rolling tackle. There's never been a Trapinch card that has like two bad attacks. Trapinches stay having good attacks, like bind and stuff. All right, let's move on. Uh, so Worlds just ended, and they already announced the regional schedule. They announced it the day before Worlds, I think, but it was Wednesday, I think, is when they announced it. So I think still a little late. I'm going to be a little bit critical here, I guess. A little bit late still for it to be coming up this soon. Of course, if it was like 2 months after Worlds, then it would have been fine. But it was like a month, right? The first regionals, not just first regionals, first special event. Is that it? Is it just those two? There's one more, isn't there? Is it two regionals? Oh, you're muted, Chip. We can't hear you. We can't hear you right now.
Yep, I'm back. I apologize.
All right, go ahead. Take over. What are you saying? Two regionals?
two regionals, one special event.
In
One
2 weeks,
regionals
two and
in
a half weeks from
Baltimore, of
here.
course. There is the regionals in Brazil, and then a special event in Bilbao. Which I don't know why. Maybe it's just because there was just one, but I feel like special events always be happening in Bilbao. Do they get like three Bilbao special events every single year? That's what it
You
feels
know, they
like
just
to
get
me.
they just get one, but it always happens, and it's just like an iconic name. I don't know. It definitely stands out. Bilbo, like, of course, for me, I think of Bilbo Baggins from Lord of the Rings. Like, it makes you think of things that have nothing to do with Pokemon. It's an iconic name. It stands out. The Bilbo special event. It makes me want to go there and participate in the Bilbo special event. To be honest, like maybe I'll try next year because it's gonna happen again for sure. There's
I
no way
mean,
they
there's
don't.
honestly probably going to be another one later this year, so just keep your eye out.
Yeah, that is the most prestigious European event. I think we should just like claim that.
Bilbo special
Yeah,
event. But yes,
yeah,
so they did announce the regional schedule. I definitely agree with Azul. Way too late. Pretty much, I mean, unacceptable, honestly, maybe is the word to think of there. Like, it's
pretty
kind of
late.
ridiculous because you're giving people less than a month to try to plan travel to these things. And also, we've gotten this information. We get these regionals and we don't know anything about them. We don't know what the pricing is. We don't know how many championship points you're playing for. We don't know how many championship points are even necessary to get to the world championships. So there's still
Yep.
a ton of question marks around, and everyone's kind of just left to assume that it'll be the same as the past seasons. And I guess there's not really any reason to assume that it would be any different, besides the CP threshold for a Worlds invite. I would imagine that they do drop that this season for a couple of reasons. One, the World Championships being in Japan, less people will kind of go naturally, I think,
Yeah.
just because it is farther away. And then also because fortunately, I don't know. I guess it kind of depends where you're at. For me, it's a big unfortunately. There will not be any local championship point tournaments like league challenges and league cups until further notice. Definitely a
Yeah.
bummer.
And also, like, I mean, registration just happened yesterday, and with how registration went last season, with so much stuff being up in the air in terms of will you be able to register because of player caps? Um, did you really want to book a flight? Like I was looking at flights at Worlds.
Yeah.
Like the day that I heard, I was like looking at flights for the first couple of regionals happening. But then one of the things for me, it wasn't like too big of a thought process. But thinking about it back now, I was like, maybe I should have held off on buying a flight until I got back and registered because registration went up yesterday, and with how registration went last season, I mean, thankfully this one did not cap. It was open for about a day, I think, just roughly a day before it capped. It did cap TCG Masters. That's the only one to really care about capping, to be honest. So TCG Masters did cap eventually today, but it was up for like 24 hours, which is good to see. But going into it, who knows, right? And like you said, pricing, CP, so many things up in the air. It felt like the announcement was a little bit late, and then registration also felt like it went up a little bit late as well. So still some stuff to fix. I feel like we're always saying that though, which is like bad. It feels like nothing ever actually gets fixed. It's like, you know, two step forwards, one step back or whatever. Like it's always you can never they can never catch up and are like nothing is ever clean, it feels like.
Sure. So let's just go through and just kind of list off the locations of the North American regionals. All of this information is on the Pokemon website, so definitely be sure to check it out. Of course, there are also regionals posted and special events for the European region, one regionals right now for Latin America. There will definitely be more added to this for Latin America. I can't imagine
I'd assume
they
so.
only would have one regionals for the entire year, and it's like in two weekends, right? And then they get nothing until Worlds. No, there will definitely be plenty more. I feel like, and already, I think whenever this got posted, there was only 12 regionals, and now two more have gotten added to North America.
Yeah.
So
So there could be more.
there definitely could be more potentially. We will see what happens. So in September, a couple weeks here, we've got Baltimore. End of September, beginning of October, we've got Peoria, Illinois. Salt Lake City in October. In December, Toronto and Arlington. In January, San Diego. In February, we've got Florida regionals in Orlando and also Knoxville. In March, there's Vancouver and Charlotte regionals. And the end of March, beginning of April, we've got Fort Wayne. May, there's Portland regionals and Hartford regionals. And then in June, Wisconsin regionals, which actually worth noting, the date for this tournament actually just got changed today. They made it, it
Oh.
was like a weekend or two later than this one that it just got changed to. So if you were already looking at flights or maybe you've booked something, you might want to try to get that figured out because it is a
I
different date now in Milwaukee.
that did look off. It did look off. The Wisconsin one, right? Yeah, yeah,
Yes.
that looked off. I was like, it wasn't 2-4 last time I looked at it. It wasn't June 2nd to 4th. Um, yeah, regionals announced for I mean, definitely expecting more for Latin America, like you said.
Also,
Um,
nothing announced for Oceania for Australia yet, so there will definitely be several there, I would
yeah,
imagine. And then
yeah,
we
nothing
didn't
yet.
get any exact dates, but we got kind of a general date for the four internationals as well. So in
Yeah.
November, we've got Latin America, which will be in Brazil. February of 2023, Oceania in Australia. April of 2023, Europe in the United Kingdom. So no longer in Germany. It'll be back in the UK. Probably just London, most likely. But
Yeah, back to the Excel Center.
and then in North America in June, hopefully not in Columbus or Indianapolis, but
Where would they put it though?
it will probably
Yeah,
be in Columbus or Indianapolis.
Indianapolis. Yeah, where would they even put it if they did try and put it somewhere else? Like I think California could be
Yeah, like I
California's
think
just so hard for people to get to.
they could do
But
an LA NAIC.
I think they try and put it in the Midwest on purpose. Like it's just so much more convenient for everyone to like get to. Is there any? I guess
I mean, it's
Texas would
convenient for
also be.
Americans to get to. It's less convenient for
Oh, that's true. Well, I mean,
international travelers
but
to get to.
I guess I never really thought about it. You two probably want to try and make it more convenient for the local player base, right? Like if
Okay,
you're already going to make the hike,
how about this?
all right.
NAIC Vegas.
Yeah, they won't do that. They could do. I could see them doing Texas though. I could honestly see them doing Texas.
Sure.
Texas is kind of a spot. They are. I mean, well, I guess we always get like a Texas regional. They're doing it in Arlington this time around, which is interesting. I've never been to Arlington, so hopefully it's they have good barbecue food there, like the other ones. Hope.
It's Texas, bro. There will be good barbecue, I'm sure.
So some other notable things as far as the regionals goes. No VGC in this year. They're
In
waiting out for
2022.
2022. They're just waiting for the new game, right? They're going to be the first regional will be once the new game has been released. And to be honest, from what I've seen from the VGC players on Twitter, it doesn't seem like anyone cares. It seems like everyone's like, yeah, the game's kind of dead up until the new game release anyways, and no one's really motivated to want to play or go to regionals. So we're fine with this. Is what I've seen from the little bit of VG that goes through my Twitter feed,
Yeah.
VGC players. So I mean, if they're fine with it, then I don't see any reason to gripe. Definitely. When I saw it initially, I was like, that kind of feels like a feels bad for the VG players. But it seems like they're from what I've seen. Like I said, I don't speak for everyone. I haven't seen everything. It seems like they're content with that happening. Um,
Yeah, and I
no,
think that I mean for them, it's kind of like, our format starts to get stale after we've had a bunch of tournaments in our format,
yeah,
right? Well, it's like, their format changes a little bit here and there. They get a couple new Pokemon added, but they're playing on the same game for 3 years. So it's
yeah.
like, I mean, that was a problem for them for forever, was the game, like the format started to just feel really stale because they would have tournament after tournament after tournament after tournament for months and months in the exact same format, and so everything just kind of started to be the same because the meta got really defined.
Well, now they have like they like switch the format
They
every
do. So they have the series
every
now.
year.
So
Yeah,
well, no, it's every couple months actually. I think it's
is it
every
okay?
quarter.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm
So
sure that helps keep things fresh a little bit.
So yeah, I think that like if you look back at the end of the Sun and Moon era, the Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon era, which was in 2019, Sword and Shield came out in 2019. I think that the VGC regionals had like 20 or 30 masters in them because people just didn't care because they were waiting for the new game. So I
Yeah,
think Pokemon noticed that and was like, you know what, that's fine. We won't hold these tournaments until January, like you said. Similar to me, most of the VGC people I've seen on my Twitter feed don't seem to mind it too much. But in lieu of VGC, Pokemon Go has become a mainstay at these tournaments, now being featured at every single one of the tournaments that has been announced so far, which was not the case this past season. It was just at a handful
yeah.
of them. It will now be at every single North American, European, and Latin America tournament that has been announced so far. That is at least. So we'll see him tapping away up there on the stage.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it seems like it's worked out. That was like last season was kind of like the trial run, I guess, right?
Yeah,
Just to try it out,
I
get it
guess
in
so.
there. I guess the true trial one was at Worlds where they had the kind of like showcase match, not this Worlds, but last Worlds, 2019. And now this time around, they were just like, all right, we're going all the way, all out. Pokemon Go at every regional, so they must have been definitely pleased with how everything went. And maybe it is kind of an organizer based thing, and then all the organizers just decided to keep Pokemon Go as well. I could see that being it. I don't know if they're being forced by Pokemon to. It does seem like the VG thing is probably coming from TPCI, but I don't know if the Pokemon Go thing is, or if it's like all the organizers unanimously agree that yes, it's just good to have Pokemon Go at their event. So, happy for the Pokemon Go community. Yeah, cool to have them tap in at every regional this season for sure.
And then one other thing we definitely need to note was another thing up here on this webpage, which reads most championship series events, including all regional and international championships, use the standard format. So no expanded, pretty much confirmed right here
Yeah, maybe
on this
once
page.
like if they ran a special event in North America, it could be expanded, right? Like that's the only way. Or if they bring back cups and challenges, and those could be expanded because it says regional, right? Like the
Yeah.
special events don't count under that. So, I mean, I'm happy about that. I don't like expanded, so let's go.
Dubs for the expanded haters. Now there is definitely a lot of people who enjoy expanded still. Um, so I'm sure there's plenty of people who are bummed out to see this, but I do
Yeah,
think that there is a benefit for there to be two formats to bounce between. But expanded really just I think before it can be played in a competitive sense, there are a few cards that are problematic that need to be changed, and it's
any
honestly maybe at a
cards.
point where the card pool is really just too big.
Yeah, I think, and I agree. I think two formats is good, and this is what I've said many times now is they just need to rotate, reset with a better understanding of what they need to do to make expanded work. So maybe that's what we'll see 2 years from now. Maybe we get this new EX thing and they're trying to change the game in that aspect. And maybe, 2, 3 rotations from now, after we've had only standard, they're like, all right, expanded is back and it is whatever the first EX set is on. So we get like, +8 sets or something for expanded, and then it grows again. But this time they have a better understanding of what expanded should look like and what they need to do to balance it and control it and kind of build off that from there. Or maybe they go sword and shield on with expanded next season, right? Not this coming up season, but the season after. And then we get expanded back that way. But I think they definitely should just do a big overhaul. And now with a better idea of what they need to do to keep it fair, fun, and balanced, they can apply those ideas to a new expanded format after a big expanded rotation.
So let's talk a little bit more about the lack of local tournaments. So no league challenges, no league cups. Mentioned this a little bit ago, but yeah, to me this is definitely a big bummer because I really enjoy cups to an extent. I think league cups become kind of a little bit too much of a grind if they're incorporated into the competitive structure poorly when it comes to stipends for internationals and stuff. Then it just becomes a super big grind for that top level of player. But as far as local events go, I mean, they are vital to me in order to help grow the game and to foster a community and get more people involved in playing. And so the fact that there are no league challenges and league cups is just so it's really just such a bummer. It really is.
Yeah. I agree, like, especially on, like, the local level, like, 'cause I even, like, to give people that passion or that fire to wanna, like, attempt a Worlds invite, they get their first 30 CP from top 4 in a league cup, like, then they win one, they get another plus 50, and I was even talking about it as far as the online game goes, like Pokemon Live, or PTCGL, that I think you should be able to earn championship points from the PTCG for some form of PTCGL tournament. You should be able to play PTCG Live, whether that be through just playing on the ladder or like in tournaments integrated into the client. There should be a way to earn championship points, even if it's just like 10 championship points somehow. Like it's just a way to get people involved
Yep.
more into the competitive side of things. So it sucks to not have the local events for that to get more people involved in it. And like I said, should be something that hopefully we eventually see in live. Who knows? Um, and hopefully they bring them back. It feels weird that they are kind of not doing them with how everything else is being kind of run and handled as of late. So maybe next quarter they'll feel comfortable with bringing them back. I'm sure it'll be a quarterly thing, right? I don't think they're going to be like, a month from now, be like, all right, and cups and challenges. It'll probably be a quarterly thing. So maybe next quarter, if not, maybe the quarter after. It would suck to kind of sit out the whole season of no cups and no challenges though for sure, or no local events at all.
So part of me wonders if they're taking this opportunity to kind of restructure and rework this whole system that they have in place with the cups and challenges, and find a different way to earn CP through local
What have they been
events.
what have they been doing the last 3 years when we've had COVID? When we
Well,
like,
I know. Like,
someone this is someone's job, just do it. Like, give it hire me, I will do it. Give me 3 years, send me in a time machine back, give me 3 years, and I'll come up with a better system, like, or at least an improved system, and I'm sure they can come up with an improved system as well. I'm not saying they can't, because there's always improvements to be made with everything in life, but, like, they've had 3 years, like, they should have had this figured out, and that's why I'm hoping it is just still kind of like COVID. Like they still don't want to have, you know, groups of people meeting up but like we have regionals and stuff happening. Like,
also Pokemon League is opened back up, I think, right? So,
yeah,
um
maybe it's the that they it'll be really hard for them to make masks mandatory at like these smaller things, and they're really like protective over them not being involved in, you know, not being able to enforce that, right? So
yeah.
maybe that is it. Maybe it'd be just way too hard for them to be like, or maybe even not possible for them to enforce that at cups and challenges and stuff. So they want to wait a little bit longer, which I think is fair. But hopefully they have figured out. Hopefully it's not a system thing where they're trying to revamp or change things. They've had 3 years, so someone should have been working on that a while ago.
We will see what happens. Or maybe we will never see. Maybe they will never return. Maybe it is only regionals, Azul, and there's no reason for you to ever go to your local card shop. Just
I mean,
sit.
I don't think I was doing any more cups and challenges, even if they did bring them back. I guess one thing I did want to mention about like this whole thing of local events not happening, and of course I think it's super fair for. I think you even mentioned it kind of sucks, right? And a lot of people are upset that they don't exist from a invite acquiring perspective to just trying to go to play more tournaments locally, right? Like a lot of people can't go to a bunch of regionals, right? So that one of their only ways was to get to play competitively was going to stuff like cups and challenges and stuff like that. There's a lot of 1Ks and local stuff popping up, of course, since the pandemic started, which is super cool. I think one of the like the I don't know. There's people being people to some extent, but one of the weirdest things to come out of it all was just like the amount of people who cared enough to like make tweets or respond to tweets about how it's you shouldn't be able to get your invite from league cups and league challenges. Like I just feels like it just shouldn't matter to you. I can't believe anyone cares enough to actually make a tweet to be like, it's a good thing cups and challenges aren't back because now people can't just get their invite solely off league cups and league challenges, or it's a good thing that they can't do that anymore, right? When it's like, if one of the best players in the world lives in the middle of nowhere and can't go to regionals, but is able to acquire their info from going to a bunch of league cups and then gets to worlds and can play in worlds, I want that player. If they're that good and they show up and they do well, I want them there, right? To be on the biggest stage if they're that good. And if they're not, they're going to go 0-3 drop anyways. Why do you care? Like, so they're either a really good player and they deserve to be at the world championships to compete with the best, or they're not. And they're just there. And if you're not better than them to beat them, then who cares how you got your world's invite? If you're just gonna show up and go 0-3 drop anyways, who cares how many regionals you went to get your world's invite? Like it doesn't matter how you got your world's invite. It's not getting a Pokemon World's invite is like not that serious. It's not that big of a deal. It's great when people can achieve it and they get it, but like compared to like other forms of competition and stuff, like getting a Pokemon World's invite is like whether you get it from League Cups or get it from going to only regionals, it just does not matter. Like, get your world's invite, show up, play Pokemon. Pokemon is not that serious. Like, it just kind of blows my mind that people actually have time to go out of their way to tweet some of the tweets I saw when this was kind of initially announced.
And I think part of the where that comes from is that Pokemon has only given their players one reason to play the game, and that is to earn, like their competitive players to play
Yep.
the game, and it is to earn a World's Invite. There is nothing else to play for. There is a stranglehold on trying to earn championship points and get as many points as possible to qualify. And other than that, once people get their Worlds Invite, so many people just stop playing the game for months. Like I've seen that happen every single season. Someone gets their Worlds Invite in 6 or 7 months, and then they don't play at all until Worlds because they've achieved their one goal.
Yeah.
So I don't know. But all of that to be said, there's so much still to come as far as the regionals, and like we said, we don't know the CP structure yet. We don't know the invite structure, so hopefully those announcements come sooner rather than later
Soon.
because it's already kind of. I honestly like part of me would not be surprised if we are playing at Baltimore regionals and people don't know. Like,
How much CP we get.
yes, would not surprise me, but
How much prize money we get. They just, like, give us a slip of paper that says, "You'll be emailed." Like,
you know, would not surprise me is all I will say. Hopefully this week we'll see like there really should have been an announcement months ago. The next best thing would be like literally as soon as possible. So hopefully it happens really soon. But in regards to Baltimore regionals, which was, when it comes to all these registration processes and stuff, obviously there's stuff going on for Brazil regionals, for the Bilbo special event, but Azul and I both
yep.
are North American. And so we see the majority North American stuff happening, or like are most involved in those processes. So the registration process was kind of a disaster through a lot of this season for these regional championships in the 2022 season. For Baltimore, though, Azul, did you feel like it was any better at all?
Um, I mean, I guess, like, the thing to talk about, of course, is kind of, well, like, registering. The process of registering was the same as always on Arcanine Labs, and registration was open at least around 24 hours, right? Which was good. That's what we like. What we kind of talked about. Like, if we could at least get 24 hours, I feel like that is, or even, like, to be honest, an hour. To be honest, like, thinking about it, as long as you're well informed and stuff, that's even, like, reasonable, right? If there can be enough slots in a tournament that registration stays open for an hour. If you're someone who really wants to go to an event and is well informed in the Pokemon community, and you're about trying to go to an event, that's plenty of time, to be honest. But when it was like, 4 or 5 seconds, that's when it gets a little bit sketchy. So that's great. Of course, that's like a big improvement from what we saw a lot of last year, and hopefully that maintains throughout the rest of the season. Is like that's not a problem. And of course, I think the biggest thing overall was there was definitely some interesting Twitter communication going on from the tournament organizer, and then I think a little bit of it was there were some unnecessary tweets from them. They were blocking players on Twitter, apparently. They need to improve as the Twitter person, or you got to get a new Twitter person behind overload events. One of those two needs to happen, I think, for sure. But I think the community's outrage towards the Twitter account was also pretty unwarranted. Like, once again, how do you have that much time to tweet those tweets in your day? Like, there's got to be something better that both sides could do. Because there was a lot of tweets coming from the overload events that were just it was like a repeat. It was like it was on repeat. It was the same thing being said differently every 30 minutes. So say it once and then finally tell us when registration is going to go live when it is. It's okay for you to let us know there's a delay. Just be like, nope, there's a delay. Registration won't happen today. We'll send out a tweet tomorrow morning when registration is going to happen. And then you don't need to tweet again. And then the amount of people that kind of had like a mob mentality of like tweeting at their Twitter was also just kind of weird and unnecessary. I don't know. It was kind of a mess, but once registration went live, it was all pretty smooth from there, I guess, for sure.
Yeah, I kind of missed out on this overload events saga this week because most of it was happening while we were in the hospital, so I wasn't really paying that close
Yeah.
attention to Twitter, obviously. But from
You
what
didn't miss out
I've
on
gathered,
much.
it was kind of a mess. It seems like the overload events Twitter was like tweeting like very unnecessary things, like you said, like just too many things, like
Yeah, a lot of tweets.
a lot of tweets, and people are trying to just register for this tournament and even tweeting stuff like registration will go live tonight. Oh, just kidding, it'll go live tomorrow. Oh, just kidding, it'll be in a couple days. Oh, just kidding, it'll be tonight. Like, people are just like, what the heck is going on? I'm trying to play in this tournament. But it all ended up okay. Registration was open for a while, like you said. One of the biggest conversations, though, that has kind of developed after registration went live and has been posted is the price of the tournament. $68.90 to play at a regional championships. And this is an increase from last season. I think the most expensive regionals last season was like 62 or $3, something like that. Most of them being around 60. I don't know. When I started playing in 2015, that was the first year I went to regional championships. I feel like I remember paying like 20 or $30. I don't remember
Yeah.
exactly. And then the first season that there was cash involved in the game in 2016, 2017. I think that first Orlando Regionals was maybe $30 or $40. I don't know. You've been playing a lot longer, Azul. Did you? How much were regionals when you first kind of started playing? Do you even remember?
It was free. It used to be free. You could just be
There
able
you
to show
go.
up, but like, I mean, it was 130 person tournaments back then, right? So the scale has gone up a lot, which is good. So obviously they need to charge, and I think it is fair for there to be a profit to be made from the tournament organizers, right? To an extent, right? Like, are they just going to keep upping it $10 every time until registration doesn't cap 1 year, and then they're going to bring it back by 10? Because that's what I think it actually has steadily been. Has been $10 like every single season, at least the average, right? They are not all the same. Not all the registration fees are the same. And some venues cost more, some venues cost less. Some TOs do more with their events besides just holding the tournaments, right? So, I mean, if this is the price point for them to hit, make their profit, run a good event, I don't know how much it costs to rent a hall in Baltimore that can fit at least 1,100 TCG players. I don't know how many other players for other events plus staff. And I would hope that this does eventually lead to, if they are going to be charging us more and more, I would hope this does eventually lead to staff actually getting paid
Yeah.
as opposed to kind of working more so on a volunteer basis, right? It's kind of funny when you go to a Pokemon event and then there's the staff and then there's the people with the volunteer shirts, like the volunteers, because the staff, for the most part, is volunteers as well,
Yeah.
right? Like no one's getting paid as far as the staff goes, right? Especially when you come like, and the thing you compare it to is just like Magic. Magic judges do get paid, right? That's kind of like the thing to compare it to is like they actually, but they also are trained better.
Yep.
And you can't, it's not as you can't just be, not as many people can just become Magic judges like you can Pokemon judges. But I think that'd be a fine thing to also um, institute would be, better
Yeah.
training and
Yeah.
then
These
also
judges
pay the judges.
judges at Pokemon regionals don't come away with nothing. Like they get the
Yeah,
promo, and
yeah,
then they get like usually a booster box or something like that. But it's
yeah.
they should get paid. I
Yeah, and I
agree.
think sometimes flights or hotel rooms get,
Yeah.
are all like all most some of that stuff gets comped as well. Like they're not, yeah, and it is kind of for the love of the game and the community. Good excuse to just go see a lot of people you enjoy hanging out with as well, even on the staff side of things. But I would like that if they want to charge us $70 or $80 for registration fees, if the events, and we haven't, this event hasn't happened yet, so it could be the best regional ever, right? And maybe that is it part and due to the 50 or the $70 registration fee, right? We haven't
Yeah.
been there yet. I don't think it will be. I don't think it's gonna be, but it could be.
Yeah, so there's a couple things I want to say in regards to this. Like, obviously, I think, like, we're at a time in the world where things are starting to become more expensive than they have been in the past. So,
Yeah.
it just kind of sucks that that's getting passed off to the player, but it kind of just is how it is at this point. But regionals fees just over year have been increasing, like you mentioned. It seems like
Yeah.
$40, then 1 year $50, then now 55, and then now 60, and then so on and so forth. Um, and I think it's a lot of the players kind of look at this and just be like, where is this money going? And it is hard to know because there's really not any transparency. These tournaments are not run by the Pokemon Company. They are run by tournament organizers who are like kind of contracted in by the Pokemon Company. Or the whole process is honestly very confusing, and I don't even know exactly how it works. Honestly, Azul may have a little bit better of an idea than I do, since Lorelai, is pretty involved with staffing at a lot of these regionals. But it is definitely a confusing process. So the lack of transparency there leaves a lot of questions to be raised. Um, and the fact that it has gotten more expensive, like, okay, it seems great for things, like it's okay, I think, for things to get more expensive if there's more value being added
Yeah.
for the players, like if there's more for them to do. But the issue there is that it is really difficult to add something else for people to do when the entire day Saturday is meant to be dedicated to playing in a tournament, right? So like
Yeah.
and that's gonna, that is the same as whenever regionals were free or when they were $20. Like your entire day is committed to playing in the tournament, so you can add things like panels, or you can add things like the artist that's coming to Baltimore regionals to sign cards. But at the end of the day, you've got all these players who have to play in the tournament, so they can't stand and wait in line to get a card signed, or they can't go see a panel to see someone speak, or they can't go play in these side events because they're trying to play in the main event.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's what theoretically Sunday is for when you drop, right? There is theoretically time, but that is true. Like for a decent chunk of players, you get to day two, you're not going to be able to do much of any, if any. And now that I think maybe regionals did, I think they were free. I don't remember. It's been so long. Like regionals back
Regionals definitely
2010.
used to be free, yes.
Okay, okay. I was like, I'm pretty sure, yeah. And I mean, who knows? Like, so back when like Orlando regionals, the first time they ever had the $5,000 for first place, that year regionals were like $40. I think I want to say maybe
It was something
35,
like that,
40.
30 or 40,
Um,
yes.
we don't know. Like back then, were they just breaking even barely? The trios, like, was that a break even? And maybe more so around 60 is where it's reasonable for them to make that profit, right? So now they finally bumped up to 70. So maybe that's why the scaling up feels so bad to us and looks so bad to us, is because we don't understand that maybe back then they were just breaking even, right? Like maybe they were breaking even at 40, so now they're turning some profit at 60. But also the regionals have gotten so much bigger. I mean, I don't know this, like the square foot of humans, or like the size of the venue versus how many people you need to register for the tournament to pay off that extra space you're getting,
Yeah.
right? Like people are working bigger and bigger tournament halls. How many more people do you need to show up to an event to compensate for that, right? Because we're going from, you know, 300-person regionals to 1,000-person regionals, right? You need to get quite a bit bigger venue, and we're adding another game in Pokemon Go, so that is
Yep.
already dedicated more judges, more space, like just more space just off for the Pokemon Go players. Like, I don't know how much that stuff costs, so I don't want to just immediately assume that they're just kind of farming the players in this instance for sure, right?
But it's also interesting because some support does come from Pokemon, right? Like Pokemon, I think sets up the stages and stuff like that, and like
Yeah,
has the tablecloths and like the
took over the prize
banners and
support
like
as well, I think.
yeah, the prize support is like from Pokemon. So it really is just kind of a big confusing mess of what comes from who and where is the money going. So I think that's where just so many of these questions kind of come up from players because it's really uncertain and
Yeah,
very
I think maybe
confusing.
one of the more reasonable things to bring up is that seniors and juniors are paying the same amount with this, but their prize support is not the same as the masters players, if I'm not mistaken. I don't
They
think
do
seniors and
have
juniors
they have the same kickers as we do, but they just don't
they're
hit the
not going to get there.
kickers.
Yeah, they're
Yeah.
not getting 5K for first, right?
No, I mean they
Yeah,
would if there was 200 of them or whatever,
this
but
never existed ever.
I know. So, but they are on the same pay table as us. Cuz like
Okay,
if
okay.
we only had 100 masters, we would have the same.
Yeah, but they're not going to get there. I feel like, and they haven't been charged the same. This is the first year that I think we've had registration be the same for juniors and seniors, right? This is the first event ever, Baltimore.
Yes, usually juniors or seniors is at least $10 if not $20 cheaper than whatever the masters entry fee is.
Yeah, and I actually
Because
just
they
pulled
also
up.
play less rounds of a tournament, right? Their tournament is
Yeah,
shorter. We play 9 rounds of Swiss plus 5 or 6 rounds. Baltimore will be 6 rounds of day
yeah.
two Swiss, looking like a big tournament. So, we'll talk about Baltimore a bit more in the coming weeks. But juniors and seniors will probably play 5 or 6 rounds, maybe 7.
Yeah, and I actually just looked at the Latin American regional coming up. I don't know what the conversion rate is for real, I believe is what it's called, to USD. But for juniors and seniors, it's 70 real, and then masters is 110. So there is uh, a pretty big difference in the price between masters and juniors and seniors
It's
there.
110 real.
Yeah.
That's $20.
Okay. So it's like $20 compared to what, $10 or
70 real. It would be
$7?
yeah. It's like
Is $7?
$14.
Okay. So
One
I'm
ten
not.
is like $22, but yeah.
Yeah, I would even really want to compare. I wasn't really comparing to USD, more so just that juniors and seniors for this regional they are paying less,
Sure.
right?
Yes. Yes.
Um, it is less, and I saw Natalie put out a tweet that last year Australian regionals were effectively $24 USD.
Yeah.
So is it just US getting screwed over, or is it just? I mean, our events are the biggest.
Or
They're the biggest.
are the convention centers in the U.S. more expensive?
Yeah, are they? The convention centers are more expensive. We have the biggest events by far. That's the biggest and the brightest, right? Our events are also streamed. I mean, I assume Pokemon comes and sets up the stage and stuff, so I assume they're paying for any kind of internet fees and electricity fees or whatever that stuff might come up with, right? Like Pokemon puts on the production separate from the TO.
Yeah,
So
I don't even know how all that stuff works, and I'm like back there, backstage at these things. So I just kind of show up and talk. So
yeah, so I would assume that would mean they um yeah, they're not covering those costs either. But once again, like we don't, yeah, as I'm saying, we don't know. Is the biggest thing. So some transparency would be nice, but it's another thing where it's like, who's ever transparent with these kind of things? Like, what kind of transparency do we want? Like, when you go buy a ticket for an NFL game, you're like, all right, where is this money going?
well, it will tell
Where's this
you.
being
It will tell
allocated?
you though. Like whenever you buy a ticket online, it'll say ticket price, and then it'll say administrative fee, and then it'll say
Okay,
service
sure, but like,
fee and
is
stuff
that
like
really
that.
telling you like what you want when we buy a when we register for a Pokemon event, we want it to be like, all right, this is going towards staffing fee,
Service fee. I think it would be
service
nice
fee.
for it to say cost of ticket and then service fee, then administrative. Like I think that would be reasonable
Okay.
for us to that I mean, I think at least that I think that level of transparency should be considered the bare minimum personally.
All right. I guess that is reasonable. That is reasonable. I guess I could see that being okay. But yeah, I mean, a little bit more transparency would be okay, I guess, but also I just don't like I don't know if it's fair for us just to assume 70 is unreasonable. I guess like I said, I think it would be good to see the juniors and seniors paying less than the masters. I think that does just make sense.
Yeah.
Um
The more expensive it becomes for juniors and seniors, the less
the
players
worse it
there will
gets.
be, and
Yeah.
like the more exclusive of a club it will kind of be. Because honestly, like juniors and seniors, like the top level players, like it's a pretty good gig for them. Like if you're
Yeah.
winning a lot of regionals or like top cutting a lot of regionals, getting these travel awards to the internationals, like it's a
Farm in
pretty
the
good
CP.
setup, honestly. You end up coming away with a decent amount of money, and like travel for the family and stuff too. So it's a good setup, and
The
it kind
kids
of
are
is
taking
just
the
gonna
parents
become
out
yeah,
to
you're
dinner.
right. Yeah, exactly, exactly. So I don't know. We'll see what happens. Before we close things out, though, one other announcement. I actually just noticed this on Twitter when I was looking for this tweet to pull up from Natalie that you mentioned. Christopher Szymanski, one of the head judges at a lot of these Pokemon tournaments, he was one of the head judges at the World Championships, tweeted out PSA, the gold, character rare, etc. reprints in Lost Origin are not legal for Baltimore, Bilbao, and Porto Alegre, which is the regionals in Brazil. I apologize if I said that incorrectly. I don't know why, but that is the law of the land at the moment, is what Christopher says. So, and that is a difference from the past. So usually, Lost Origin. So Lost Origin pre-releases started this weekend. Usually, whenever a set is been released or it is coming out, the cards from that set are able to be played if they're reprints of previous
Yeah.
cards. So one of the big examples I remember from kind of recent years was Decidueye from Guardians Rising, Decidueye GX. It got a hyper rare version of the card of Rainbow Rare, where regular Decidueye was in Sun and Moon base set. And I remember Guardians Rising came out and it wasn't legal yet, but people were playing these hyper rare Decidueyes in their decks because they were able to get them from pre-releases or early buys or whatever it may be. So that is definitely an interesting thing to see. A little confusing maybe, but definitely something to throw out there though for anyone who's maybe pulled like one of the character rare Mew VMAXs or something like that and thinking that they want to put that in their deck. You can't do it.
Yeah, don't do it. I don't think the penalties will be too harsh for those kind of things because the cards are the same. But yeah, just
Yeah,
don't do it to begin with.
someone did ask
Um,
in the replies to Christopher, so if an opponent plays such a card during said regionals, should you call a judge and would there be a penalty? And Christopher's response was, I don't love the way that sounds like fishing for a penalty, but yes, a judge
yeah,
would be involved. Not going to prejudge what that penalty could be, though. That'll be for whoever is in the appropriate role at each event.
yeah, definitely don't. I've been like speaking more heavily, but like don't try and fish for a penalty in that way. If your opponent does flip over that card, play the game against them, and then tell them they should probably go switch their card, and they should probably go talk to a judge and probably switch their card. trying to beat your opponent because they're playing a Lost Origins card. Is that is the exact same card that they would have been
Now, if your
playing. Is
opponent flips over a Giratina V star, you should call
yeah,
a judge though, or a Giratina V, because that's a little different. But yeah, a reprint card that's like functionally the same. It's like, yeah, I kind of feel that.
yeah. You don't need to win your game that way. For sure. I actually just tried to look up at the Bilbo. They don't have their registration fee available. I was actually curious what theirs was going to be, but it's just not available. But apparently registration is supposed to go up like tomorrow, I think.
Got it.
So maybe we'll know by tomorrow. Know a day late, unfortunately, for us to talk about it. But I'm curious actually now to know how much it does cost. But yeah.
Well, I think that's going to do it for this week's episode. A long episode, but we had a lot to catch up on.
Yep.
Missed a couple weeks or a week, so we will be back next week talking more about the EX cards, which have been revealed at the World Championships. We'll also have a few other things to talk about, and we'll start looking ahead to these tournaments coming up, kind of how the meta is evolving after the World Championships. We've got these one more weekend of tournaments before Lost Origin becomes legal. So yeah, thank you guys so much for listening. If you did enjoy, please be sure to leave us a rating on your favorite podcasting platform and subscribe to the YouTube channel. We have way more viewers per episode than we have subscribers on the YouTube channel. So just click that little subscribe button. It takes 1 second, helps us out a bunch. I think we're pretty close to like 3,000 subs. So see if we can make that happen soon. Thank you so much for the support. It has been great. Be sure to follow us on social media. You can find myself at Trainer Chip on Twitter. Azul is at Azul_GG. And you can also follow the podcast at Uncommon_Energy. And yeah, thanks as always for the continued support, everyone.
You guys do all that, and we'll catch you next week. Peace.
See ya.